We are here with state employment economist Nick Beleiciks to discuss Oregon's employment situation. Job numbers for September were recently released, and Oregon has lost jobs for the second consecutive month.
In September, Oregon lost 3,800 jobs, and that is the second month in a row of job losses. In August, the revised figures show that Oregon lost 7,000 jobs.
And can you point to any industries that performed well or some that didn't?
Well, let's talk about the ones that didn't perform well in September first. Leisure and hospitality lost 3,700 jobs. It also lost jobs in August, but that's following 2 months of really strong job growth in June and July. So over the summer, things have been pretty even for leisure and hospitality. It's just we saw a lot of job growth earlier in the year, probably because employers were hiring sooner and got the workers they needed, and they didn't hire as many in August and September. Another industry that was down jobs in September was professional and business services, which is a large, very broad sector. It was down 3,100 jobs, and that has been an area of growth in Oregon for many years now, so it's pretty unusual to see a decline in September.
So Oregon's over the year job growth is now closer to 2%. And that's lower than the 3% we saw during the summer and earlier this year.
Yeah, Oregon added a lot of jobs from February through July of 2017, but following these 2 months of job losses, we're sitting at an over-the-year job growth rate of 2%, which is good. It's not great, but it's actually faster than the U.S. job growth rate of just 1.2% over the last year.
So we saw a decline in the number of jobs over the month. What happened with the unemployment rate?
The unemployment rate was 4.2% in September. That follows 4.1% in August. The unemployment rate's still at a record low level, but what we've seen this summer is a lot of people join the labor force, and it takes them a while to find jobs, and until they find work, they're counted as unemployed, so the unemployment rate goes up a little bit. So we're looking at 4.2% unemployment rate in September, and that's exactly the same as the U.S. unemployment rate. I think it's important to note here that there weren't an unusually large number of layoffs in September, so the unemployment rate increased by people joining the labor force, not by a lot of people losing their jobs.
And so often we hear about the labor force participation rate. How is that impacted by the situation?
The labor force participation rate is on a long-term downward trend due to demographics. As more people reach retirement age and leave the labor force, it puts downward pressure on the labor force participation rate. But we have seen a rebound in the labor force participation rate due to more people entering the labor force to find work, because the job growth had been so strong earlier in the year. Right now it's been stabilized at 63.6%.
And we've heard about forest fires in Oregon for the past few months, especially during early September. So did that have any effect on employment?
It turns out that at least in the statewide numbers, the forest fires didn't seem to impact the numbers at all. And that's because although some people were out of work because of the forest fires, I don't think enough people were out of work long enough that they weren't counted in the job figures. So basically, if someone was out of work early in September because of the fires, but they ended up going back to work in September, they'd still be counted as having a job in these figures, and therefore even though they missed some work because of the fires, they were still employed at some point in September.